Okay, this is where we left off. So this is going to be part two of our fight for our Texas independence. The wonderful Lone Star State, and obviously the slogan "Don't mess with Texas." And I've seen that actually on some bumper stickers. Other stereotypes of Texas: best is barbecue. Everybody has a gun rack in Texas. Yeah, we could keep going on. Texas roadkill. There's actually Texas Roadhouse, which is also a steakhouse, so it's known for a lot of cattle and beef. Anyways, moving on to what happened at the Alamo. We know we lost some famous people like Davy Crockett, William B. Travis, everybody that was in that Alamo when it was attacked. Everybody, single person was killed in a matter of time. You can imagine 100, like let's just say 1,500 versus 180. They're not going to last that long, but they did actually surprisingly put up more of a fight than what Santa Anna expected. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I'll mention this again when we talk about the Mexican American War, is that a lot of the Mexican soldiers are conscripted. That means they were not voluntarily part of the army. They are farmers who are gathered up along the way, are forced into service. So it's kind of like a draft. It's not people who are like, yeah, I can't wait to be part of the military. It's just people that are forced to do it. So that's also one of the reasons why the Americans will have a huge benefit over the Mexicans during the Mexican American War, is because that we have trained soldiers and they have people who would rather be at home farming. So, anyways, going back to the Alamo was lost. The original plan was to blow it up. They did not follow orders. They did not rendezvous back with Sam Houston, who's the commander at the time. And yes, that's why we also have a Houston, Texas, because he is the commander and will be the first president of Texas. So, March 1836, after the Alamo falls, Texas creates their independence and their own kind of Declaration of Independence and their own constitution. That's actually one of the things I wanted to mention that people don't talk about. One of the reasons Sam Houston and people didn't bring reinforcements to the Alamo was because they refused to do anything until they had the laws and the Declaration of Independence written down and hammered out. So they were busy away from the battle trying to hammer out just kind of the political aspect of it. And so those 180 men could have potentially lived had reinforcements been sent, but Houston was not going to do that because he wanted to make sure that things were written down and all the laws and everything were hammered out as well as could be before this war started. Santa Anna then marches on after the Battle of Alamo. He marches north. He is going to take down Sam Houston and anybody else who is in their path trying to rebel against the Mexican government. So we go to Goliad. The Goliad is run by Captain James W. Fannin, as you can read, and he has 350 men. His orders were to leave the Goliad. He's like, hey, Santa Anna's marching. We know he's coming towards you. You need to leave your fortification and you need to retreat to meet with Sam Houston. The idea was the people in the Alamo and the people in the Goliad were supposed to retreat north to meet with Sam Houston, and then they would have a big battle there. Well, Fannin got the message, but he didn't get it in time. So he's not actually able to leave in time. And so, of course, he then has to fight against Santa Anna. They actually all surrender. And so all 350 men will be taken captive. But Santa Anna's like, you guys were trying to fight against me. Screw you. And he kills them all. All right. So think execution style. Thank you for surrendering and putting down your guns. Now I shoot you. So you can imagine when people find out about this, they are infuriated. They are upset. This adds fuel to the fire. What Santa Anna doesn't realize is that people in Texas are going to use a lot of emotion and anger and use that while they're fighting. He is actually making the situation worse. So now they have martyrs at the Alamo. Now they have martyrs at the Goliad. And now the Texans are like, we have to make the stand. We are all united to fight against this evil person. This is supposed to be a picture of the Goliad. You can see how it's actually a fortification. You got your standard mission church in there, but then you also have your walls and everything to protect you. Obviously, you don't have the cars in the 1800s, but this is an older kind of pixelated photo. Like I said, the result is that all 350 men are going to be killed. If you're looking at the little green arrows, this is what's happening right here, is that you're going to have a march up to the Goliad. First you have San Antonio, then you have the Goliad, and then they're all going to meet up here at the Battle of San Jacinto. You see where it says Galveston in the red on the right, or Washington on the Brazos. That is going to be close to this area is where you're going to have this last great battle. So there's really only 3 battles. It's going to be February to April, so like 2 months of fighting. And most of that fighting time is actually just marching time to meet up with each other. Also, if you're looking at San Antonio and Goliad, Houston is constantly just retreating, waiting for his moment to finally attack Santa Anna. And you can imagine if you're Santa Anna, you're like, victory at the Alamo, victory at the Goliad. These people have nothing. So he's growing very confident with himself. Then you're going to have the Battle of San Jacinto. This is the third and final battle for Texas independence. And people are going to be yelling, remember the Alamo, remember Goliad. Most of the time, whenever you watch a movie, you'll just have people saying, remember the Alamo. That's like the famous thing, but they actually said remember both. It was just, I don't know why historians abbreviate everything. IDK, LOL. Get it? It's a joke because I just abbreviated. I don't know. Anyway, so you have these catchphrases here. Remember the Alamo, remember the Goliad. Texas are going to win their independence in this battle, mainly because they use the element of surprise. Santa Anna is not expecting them to attack. So you have 700 Texans versus 1,300. That's a lot better, especially 700 angry, vengeful, well-armed Texans versus 1,300 men who really would rather be back on the farm and with their families. This battle lasted only 20 minutes, and you can see 9 Texans are dead versus 630. It is a huge victory for the United States. Santa Anna himself is actually trying to escape dressed as a common soldier. And everybody's like, where's Santa Anna? And then, of course, probably his men who don't like him that much are like, he's right there. He's dressed as like a private. I'm like, oh, okay, Santa Anna. This is not the only time that many military leaders will dress up as something else. There's been examples of military leaders dressing up as women to escape capture. This happened during the American Civil War, which we'll talk about. Anyways, so Texas finally wins its independence by just a 20-minute huge battle. Of course, over, what is it, like 500 men had to die for that, but it is still a win. So Santa Anna signs a treaty. Texas is recognized as independent. There's still going to be a border dispute between who controls the land between the Rio Grande and the Nueces River. This will eventually lead to the Mexican-American War. So when I say Texas is independent, the United States still will not touch Texas. Martin Van Buren and John Tyler really don't want to deal with it because they feel like if they recognize Texas and bring it into the fold of the United States, that will cause immediate war with Mexico, which it will, and it was, and it did. But that's why Texas has its own president and its own government for a while. It kind of went alone as its own country for a while. So here's a picture of Sam Houston. Like I said, first president of Texas. That's not a joke. Texas becomes a state in 1845. This is happening in 1836. So about 9 years, Texas was its own country. In fact, Texas was actually making a treaty with Great Britain, talking about becoming part of Great Britain. In the effect that they would become trading partners, Great Britain would provide protection, but Texas would still be independent. Also, it would give Great Britain access to that sweet, sweet cotton, which is what they wanted, which was produced heavily in Texas, which you need slaves to produce. So I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but I'm just trying to make these constant connections for you. The U.S. doesn't touch Texas for 9 years because Texas is huge. If they bring Texas in, that is a huge territory that will be slave territory because it's south of the Mason-Dixon line. It's south of that 3630 parallel. They didn't want to start war with Mexico, so they're just like, you know what, I don't know what we're going to do. So they just don't do anything about it. They finally take action when Great Britain shows an interest in Texas. When they start courting Texas, saying, oh, we want your cotton. And Texas is like, cool, we want your Navy. All right, so this is just Texas pride. It means, like, you can see, I like the little stake with the hat up there. And then, of course, Houston for NASA, where a lot of the space missions start off in. Okay, we're going to go through this really quickly. Oregon country, what's going on? Number one, if you haven't had a chance to play the Oregon Trail game, it's a lot of fun. You'll probably die of dysentery 1,000 times or get attacked by Native Americans. I don't know. And I'm kind of bummed we're not together because I like to really actually do an interactive Oregon Trail game. Oh, well, we'll all survive. So in 1818, the United States agrees. This is shortly after the War of 1812 that is officially ended by the Treaty of Ghent in 1815. So the 1818, the U.S. and Great Britain agreed to joint occupation. By 1825, Spain and Russia, who really actually are just struggling at home, give up any claims to that territory. They're like, yeah, we don't have the manpower. We don't have the money for this. You guys can have it. What happens is it now becomes a race between the United States and Great Britain about who's going to control this territory. Well, the United States has more quote-unquote mountain men. These are people who are just like, I like to live out in the country. I like to live in the mountains. I go trapping for fur. I kill bear and beaver and all kinds of things, and I make money off that. Eventually, because they map all of these mountain men, because they are traveling in and out of these mountains in these areas, they actually start kind of blazing the trail for other Americans to come to the Oregon Territory. And the Oregon Territory is not just Oregon, it's Oregon, Washington, what do I want to say? Idaho, Montana. It's that whole big chunk up in the Northwest. This is the border dispute. The United States and the British agreed to actually have that 49th parallel. We actually originally wanted it at the 54th, which would have given us Vancouver, which would have been cool because, I mean, honestly, Vancouver's really cool. But they agree at the 49th parallel, and this is what seals our northern border from this point on until, of course, we get Alaska. But that's not going to be closer until right after the American Civil War under William H. Seward. So we have the 49th parallel. We have these states that are going to be made: Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon. This all happens under President James K. Polk. The next thing we're going to talk about once spring break comes back once we're done with spring break, is the Mexican-American War. So I'm sure you guys are all going to do something crazy for spring break this year. Woo! Or you're going to do exactly what you're doing now. Either way, it'll be fun. So Mexican-American War when we come back. I hope you guys have fun and are taking care of yourselves. See you guys.